Sec 3 NA Mathematics, Chapter 5, Coordinate Geometry, Part 2. Now, in this part of the chapter, we're going to learn about equations of straight line. Rather than saying that we're going to learn, we actually have revised a little bit of this in Sec 2 and Sec 1. Now, equations of straight line is given by the line equation y equals to mx plus c. This is the equation actually for the slanted line. Okay, before we continue, what is the m? M stands for the gradient. What about c? C is the y-intercept. Now, before we continue the type question, recall in the past that we actually learned about 3 types of equation. So we have 3 types of line. Number 1, if I have a slanted line, my equation will come in the form of a y equals to nx plus c. It can be an upward sloping or downward sloping line. But if I were to have another type, which is a horizontal line. Okay, a horizontal line looks like that. It will cut which axis? It only cuts the y-axis. So if it only cuts the y-axis at this particular number, let's say k, this equation will come in the form y equals to k. So it cuts the y-axis only have one unknown k. Then I have the next type for the vertical line. Now, vertical line looks something like that, where it cuts only the x-axis. Okay, so let's say this is the letter K. That means if it cuts only the x-axis, the equation will come in the form x equals to a number. Now, please bear this in mind before we start off with the next few questions. Now, we shall continue where we left off from the notes, the last lesson. Now, this part of the lesson tells us that we're going to learn about a gradient, y-intercept, and equation of a straight line. We already understood that m is the gradient, and c is the y-intercept. So now, if that's the case, can you try to recognize the gradient and the y-intercept from the following equations? First equation, question 1a. I have x plus y to be equals to 5. Is this of the form y equals to mx plus c? Can I make y the subject? So I'm going to keep y, and then x will now shift over, migrate to the other side, and I shall rearrange it such that I will get my x term first. So when x migrate over, it becomes minus x. And then what stays here? 5 stays here on its own. So if that's the case, what is the gradient? This m tells me the gradient. This number is actually negative 1. So we know that the gradient m is equals to negative 1. And the y-intercept c is equals to 5. Can you try with the next question B? Now question B tells me I have 2y to be equals to x plus 8. But of the form I like is y only. I don't like 2y. What can I do? Now most of students will tell me they will divide by 2. Now if I were to do this, I can actually have 2y equals to x plus 8. And then I try to make it into just y. And I'll get divided the whole thing by 2. But when I do this, it's very difficult to separate the individual terms. So for me, I prefer not to do this. I prefer to divide them individually. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take x over 2 and 8 over 2. This simplifies to y equals to, if I have x divided by 2, it's actually half of x. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So what is the gradient now? And what's the y-intercept? The gradient will be half no x, just the half, and the y-intercept is the number 4. Okay, next one, part C. Let's do one more before you do the rest on your own. Right, part C, down here we have 3x minus y minus 15. As usual, we're trying to make C our subject. So I should keep minus 1 a minus y, and I'll migrate 3x over to be negative 3x plus 15. But I don't like negative y, so I'm going to change all the sign throughout by multiplying negative 1 to every single term. I'll get y equals to positive 3x and negative 15. So in this case, what is the value for m, the gradient, and c, the y-intercept? M will now be 3 and y will be negative 15. Have you gotten the answer? Now we should give you some time to try the questions below. Please try to do them on their own first before we review the answer. Have you gotten the answer? In the next part of the lesson, we will be looking at finding the equation of a straight line if you are given the gradient and a particular point. So let's take a look at example 5. So question says find the following equation of the straight lines if I'm given a gradient 2 and I pass through the point 0, 1. So given a gradient 2, so my equation for now originally is y equals to mx plus c, but now they tell me the gradient m is now equals to 2. So my equation changes to y equals to 2x plus c. And now I have a point here, 0 and 1. What does 0 and 1 tells me? 0 tells me this is the x value, and 1 tells me this is the y value. So if I were to sub this point inside my equation now, and that I will have y to be the number 1, and x to be the number 0, and that means I'm left with a plus c. Will you be able to find what's the answer for c? Well, c equals to 1. Therefore, my equation of this straight line becomes y equals to 2x plus 1. So this will be the answer. Okay, we should try one more question before you try the practices on your own also. So given the gradient is 3, y equals to mx plus 3. Now the m is the gradient 3. X plus c. I know this point 2, 5. So x is equals to 2, y is equals to 5. So I'm going to substitute this into my equation. Y now becomes the value 5. 3 times the x now is the number 2 plus c. So I'm left with an unknown c. So this is 5 equals to 6 plus c. C will be equals to 5 minus 6, which is negative 1. So therefore, my equation now y equals to the gradient is 3x. Now the c is -1. So this is my equation of the straight line. Now that you've gotten some of the concepts, so let's try the following practices over here, and then you can try them on your own as well. Okay, I should just go through the answers for the first two, and I'll leave you to do the answers for part C and D on your own. Now, for example, I have y equals to 3/4 x plus c at the point 0, 7. What do I do with it? X is equal to 0, y is equals to 7. So now the y value changes to the number 7, then equals to 3/4 times the x value is now 0 plus c. Okay, so this is 7 equals to 0 plus c. C will be equals to 7. But is this the equation? No, the equation is y equals to 3/4 x plus the c now is the number 7. Have you gotten the answer? Let's try part M. We'll have y equals to the gradient to be -4x plus c. So this is 0, -11. X is the number 0. Y is the number -11. So we have -11 to be -4 times 0 plus c. So c is equals to -11. So what's our equation? Equation will be y equals to -4x minus 11. Now we would like to try the next two questions on your own. Now please try to do them before we review the answers. Now have you gotten the answer? Now take note for part A, we are working with algebra, so do not use mixed numbers in your equation, use improper fractions. Moving on. Up next, we have already learned how to find the equation of a straight line given a gradient and a particular point. But what if now I were to give you 2 points, but I did not give you the gradient? Will I still be able to find gradient using these 2 points? Yes, right. What's the formula for finding gradient between 2 points? Well, gradient is given by y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we shall let this be x1, y1, x2, y2. And we'll get the gradient to be 5 minus 2, 1 minus 0. And that gives me the gradient of 3. So in this case, my equation of a straight line will be y equals to mx plus c. What's the m now? The m that we found is 3. X plus c. So how can I find the y-intercept then? I can choose any one single point, right, to put inside the equation. I have 2 points down here, A and B. What will you choose? Well, up to you. Both can get the answer. So in this case, I'm going to make myself easier. I'll choose point A, 0 and 2. So if I choose A to be 0 and 2, X will be the number 0, Y will be the number 2. So Y is the number 2. 3 times 0 is still 0. So 2 is equals to C. Therefore, the equation of this straight line is now y equals to the gradient, which is 3x. And now the y-intercept is 2 plus 2. Have you gotten the answer? Okay, should we try one more question before you do the rest of the questions on your own as practice? Alright, we should begin. Firstly, we are given 2 points, but we're not given a gradient. So first step is to find the gradient. So to find the gradient, I will need y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So y2 minus y1, that will be negative 9 minus 6. x2 minus x1, that will be 2 minus negative 1. Be careful of the negative sign. So here I will get a negative 12 over 3, which gives me a gradient negative 4. So gradient is negative 4, that means y equals to negative 4x plus c. I can choose any points to use, so either point C or point D on this straight line. So that means I'll choose C then, negative 1, 6. So x will be negative 1, y will be 6. So 6 equals to negative 4 times negative 1 plus c. So 6 equals to 4 plus c. 6 minus 4, so c will be equals to 2. Therefore, y equals to negative 4x plus 2. Have you gotten the concept? Now, if that's the case, let us try the remaining questions. I shall do C and D for you, and then you will do E and F on your own. Okay, shall we begin? First step, number 1, gradient. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Be careful of the negative sign. So this will be negative 10 over 15, negative 2 over 3. So gradient is y equals to negative 2 over 3x plus a c. Choose any point. So I'll choose x to be negative 3, y to be 2. And I get 2 equals to 2 plus c. Therefore, the y-intercept is 0. So my equation will be y equals to negative 2 over 3x. Do I need to write plus 0? No need, right? Because I'll need to simplify it again. So therefore, this is the answer. Okay, one more question before you do the rest on your own. Gradient y2 minus y1. Be careful of the negative sign. Negative 1 minus negative 13 over x2 minus x1. Be careful of negative sign. So in this case, I will have negative 1 plus 13, which gives me 12. Negative 2 plus 1, which gives me negative 1. So the gradient is negative 12. So y equals to negative 12x plus c. Choosing any one point. So x is negative 1, y is negative 13. So negative 13 negative 12 times negative 1 plus c. Negative 13 equals to positive 12 plus c. C equals to negative 13 minus 12. C equals to negative 25. Therefore, the equation is y equals to negative 12x minus 25. Have you gotten the answer? Now let's try the remaining questions on your own. Notice for this part of the question, our denominator for this gradient here is divided by 0. What does this mean? This means that this line is actually a vertical line. So let's take a look at our question. I have k to be negative half. So negative half will probably negative half 3. So negative half and y equals to 3, so probably somewhere over here. And then I have point L to be negative half, so this will be point L. That means I have a vertical line. Now when I have a vertical line over here, I notice that this line only cuts the x-axis, and it only cuts the x-axis at the number where it's negative half. Therefore, this equation for the line is x equals to negative half. That it will not be of the form y equals to mx plus c. Now, please take note of this question. Okay, if you are ready, then let's move on. Up next, we are going to find the equation of each of the different following cases where we have slanted lines, vertical lines, and horizontal line. Now, I shall do all the questions on the left-hand column, and I shall leave you to do the answers for the right-hand column on your own. Now, let's take a look at question 4a. Question 4a, this equation here, this line only cuts the x-axis at the number 5. So what will be the equation? The equation, if it cuts only the x-axis, the equation only have x. So this equation will be x equals to 5. What about question C over here? We have this to be a horizontal line, and it only cuts the y-axis at the number 9. So a horizontal straight line only cuts the y-axis, so equation only have y equals to 9. Okay, next one over here, E. I have this to be a slanted line. A slanted line will cuts both axes, y and x, so it touches both the axis and the x-axis. We notice something. It passes through the point of origin. What is the y-intercept in this case? The y-intercept here is actually the number 0. So in order to do so, we have this point 0, 0. Let's use these 2 points to find the number 1, step 1, the gradient. So gradient will now be y2 minus y1. So I'll take y to be 2 minus 0, x2 minus x1, 3 to the power 0. So this will gradient will be y equals to 2 over 3. Equation of a straight line, y equals to mx plus c, 2 over 3x plus c. But what is our y-intercept down here? Our y-intercept is the number 0. So if that's the case, y equals to 2 over 3x plus 0. Do I need to write the plus 0? No need, right? So this will be the answer. Have you gotten the concepts? So we are going to do this on your own here, here, and here. So you do these questions on your own and we'll review the answers tomorrow. Right, next page. Similarly, I'll do part G. So G over here has 2 points. And we know that this point over here, it cuts the y-axis. So the y-intercept is the number -4. So I'm going to save a little bit of time down here, given the diagram this way. So it cuts 2 axes, x and the y-axis, so the equation will be y equals to mx plus c. But before we begin the first step, we're going to find the gradient. So the gradient will be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that will give me 4 over 3. Take note of the negative sign. So gradient for equation for straight line will be y equals to 4 over 3 x plus c. But we know our y-intercept here, in this case, this picture tells us as is -4. So y equals to 4 over 3x minus 4. Have you gotten the answer? Well, if you've gotten the concept, you'll leave this part of the question here for you to do as practice on your own. We'll review and check the answers tomorrow. So now let me go on to the next part of our concept. Next part of our concept, parallel lines and their gradient. Now when 2 lines are parallel, what does that mean? That means the slope is the same, right? So if the slope is the same, the 2 lines will have the same gradient. Okay, so if the 2 lines have the same gradient, line AB is parallel to this particular line. Write down the gradient of AB. Now gradient of AB will be equals to the gradient of this line. What's the gradient of this line? We have y equals to mx plus c, and the m is 2. So in this case, the gradient of this line, gradient of AB will be 2. Now we know that the gradient of AB is 2. They tell us that second part, AB passes through the point A to be this. So how do I find the equation of this straight line? Y is now equals to mx plus c. The m is the gradient, 2x plus c. So now how to find the y-intercept? I know x is equals to 3, y equals to -4. Is AB passes through the point A. So y is -4, 2 times 3 plus c. So -4 equals to 6 plus c. C will be -4 minus 6. C will be equals to -10. But is this the equation? No, right? The equation will be y equals to 2x minus 10. And this will be the answer. Have you gotten the answer? Now we should try question B, and then I'll leave the next page for you as your own practice. Question B. The line KL is parallel to y equals to 3x equals to 2. and K is that particular point. So if I want to find the equation of KL, KL means it's parallel. Parallel means the gradient comes from this equation. How do I find the gradient? Now this equation here, y equals y plus 3x equals to 2. Is it of the form y equals to mx plus c? Not yet, right? So let's rearrange this and make it equals to y equals to negative 3x plus 2. This is the line that KL is parallel to. If KL is parallel to this line, what's the gradient of this line? That means the gradient of KL will now be the gradient of this line to be negative 3. So now I know gradient of KL is negative 3. So equation for KL will be y equals to negative 3x plus c. How do we find c now? They tell me k is the number to negative 7. KL will pass through the point k. So x is equals to 2, y equals to negative 7. So minus 7 equals to negative 3 times x plus c. Negative 7 equals to negative 6 plus c. Negative 7 plus 6 equals to c. C equals to negative 1. So therefore, equation of this line is y equals to negative 3x minus 1. Have you gotten the answer? Now next, question C, and over here I'll leave you to do the answers and practice on your own. So we'll review these questions in the next lesson. See ya!